Cutting the smart film. First of all, you're going to choose the right roll for the smart film. There's 3 different sizes, 1.2, 1.5, and 1.8 meters. Always cut the roll straight at the 90 degrees angle. This process is just makes it easier for the next window that you want to cut, that you always have the angle of 90 degrees like a perfect rectangle. If your rectangle isn't 90 degrees, you must adjust it on the roll by cutting off the perfect line. You have the 90 degrees angle. How to recognize the PDLC. PDLC has 5 layers. So basically the first layer is the PET, the second one is ITO film, the PDLC coating is in the middle, and then ITO and PT film, so 5 layers. How to recognize basically the self-adhesive side or the non-stick side. So when you cut a piece of the roll, the smart film will always curl in a curve. The outer curve side or the under part of the smart film roll is self-adhesive or self-stick, and the inner side is non-stick. So when you peel off or take off the first layer, the PET protection film, you can feel if it's sticky or not. Cutting the smart film. Use a special knife tool to cut the first layer of the smart film, the PET and the PDLC coating on one side. You can choose sticky or non-sticky. You cut around 45% of length, so which leaves you about a spacing of 10 centimeters in the middle. Clean it with alcohol, the ITO layer, which will become clear. You flip over to the other side, basically under part. You do the same process as before, cutting the smart film and clean it. Use the bus bar, so basically you put a small amount of conductive paint, the silver paint, and on the cut layer stripe of the smart film, you put it nicely lined and with the rubber tool along on the bus bar, so which will create a silver stripe. Make sure there's 1 millimeter of spacing between the paint layer and the non-cut part. Use the blow dryer to dry up the paint. Make sure that the paint is dry before applying the copper strip. On the non-sticky side of the smart film, so take off the copper wire strip and stick the copper strip directly on the silver painted strip that is dry. Use the tool to flatten the copper strip onto the paint. On the sticky side of the smart film, you do the same process. Take off the copper wire strip tape and stick the copper strip directly on the silver painted strip that is dry. Use the tool again to flatten the copper strip onto the paint. Most important part, prepare 2 small rectangle copper strip. Take off the tape and put it half of the small rectangles on the copper wire strip of the sticky side, and then flip over to the other half on the non-sticky side of the smart film. The other half of the rectangle copper strip goes under the protective layer, the PT or the first layer, and you can remove at the same time the PT layer, the size of the rectangle copper strip. This way you can weld without burning the PT layer afterwards. The welding. So before this process, prepare 2 black and 2 red cables per window, about 10 centimeters each long. Take off the plastic ends, about 3 millimeters, so that the wires are visible. Remember that all welding dots should be applied on the non-sticky side. Basically 2 dots on the long copper strip and 2 dots on the rectangle copper strip, all on the same side of the smart film. So heat up the welding tool, apply the welding wire on the strip to create a bubble welding dot. Prepare welding dots on the copper strip from each of a distance of 5 to 10 centimeters between the 2 dots. Heat up the dots together with the wire cables and add more welding wire if needed. The welding wire dots When cooled off, the cable should be attached and welded together. If the cable comes off or disattached, reheat the dot and add more welding wire if needed. Testing. Attach the hook from the testing adapter with one red cable and the other hook on one back cable. You switch it on, it should be clear. You switch it off, it should be opaque. Packing is a very important, delicate process. When you finish testing the smart film, make sure that you cannot roll up the smart film tightly. Basically, the 16 centimeter diameter cylinder will offer you a safe packing angle. The inner side is the non-stick side, the outer side is the self-stick side. Roll the smart film non-stick inside, which the wire and the copper strip will be shown last at the end when you roll up. So use the paper tape or paint tape protector to hold up the roll. If you use regular tape, it might remove the PET layer when unpacking. Also, don't tie too much at the end or pressure the roll on because it might mark or dent the layers between the copper strip and the protection PET layer when rolling up. Roll the end towards you like upwards. Packing for shipment. So basically when you wrap up the smart film, you can put an extra plastic wrap to protect it and final wrap with a protection foam. Then you can easily box it. Also make sure that always the copper strips are always facing up.